Hi, I'm Claire from Zinnia House Furniture Painting and how to recreate with paint, furniture painting made easy. This video is all about the not so fun part of painting, the prep. So I'm going to assume at this point that the furniture you're starting with is in good condition. We'll be covering repairs to things like laminate, broken drawers, legs, those other kinds of fixes in another video. So you'll usually need to do those things first before you even dive into the prep. Sorry to tell you that, but you need to do that. I also want to make a note here to prep your space. Cover your floor and anything around you that can get paint splatter on you. I have a paintbrush here. When you paint, splatter will go everywhere, even if you think it won't. Many times, and your clothes, make sure you have your paint clothes on. Many times I thought I was just going to do a little bit, and then I ended up touching something up, and I ended up with paint on my good clothes. So the remainder of this video, I'm going to go over with you the prep that you may actually need to do before you start painting. I'm going to chat about cleaning your pieces, absolutely necessary. Sanding, sometimes necessary, rarely though, and stripping, almost never, but I'm going to go over that anyway. There's also going to be a shopping list for you in this lesson and some flow charts to help you decide what you actually do need to do to prep your piece well. Okay, so first, it's really important that no matter what, your piece is cleaned before you start. And how you clean it is going to be dependent on how dirty it is. So for most of the pieces that I do, I use Lysol wipes before I start. Honestly, it's the quickest and fastest way. You just pull your wipe out, wipe it down, and you're good to go. It's pretty simple. If there's more grease and grime, you're going to need to get a little more aggressive. That may call for like some Dawn dish soap. And sometimes I just like squirt the Dawn right on and scrub it down. I use a scrub brush sometimes and then rinse it well. So it's super important. With the exception of the Lysol wipes, you don't need to rinse those, but it's super important that anything else you wipe your stuff down with, any cleaner, you have to rinse it well. If there's residue left, your paint isn't going to stick and then you're going to have a problem. I sometimes will take a spray bottle and after I've rinsed it with a rag, I will spray it down and let the stuff run down to get to rinse it if I need to do that. Okay, on a rare occasion, you're going to need to use something like a TSP, like a stronger cleaner, if there's a lot of grime or grease on it. And again, I'm just going to point out, make sure it's rinsed well again. Okay, finally, while we're talking about cleaning, if you have a piece that's really glossy, you can grab some what we call liquid deglosser. This is liquid sandpaper. It's the same thing. You can see, sorry, you're reading it backwards, but it's gloss cutter. This is from Dynamic, and you can, there are different variations of this. This is just the brand that I happen to have in the cupboard. And so I just wipe that on and it takes down the sheen so you can make the surface ready to prep, and so the paint will adhere to it. Okay, let's talk about sanding. So I see people asking all the time on Facebook chat groups about, do I need to sand? And I'm going to give you the really simple answer. No, you don't need to sand. If you're using chalk paint, that's the beauty of chalk paint, is you don't have to sand down. I personally have painted hundreds of pieces and I almost never sand before I paint. You do have to sand in the process of painting, but you never have to sand something down before you paint it. I'm going to give you the few occasions where I get the sander out, okay? So the main reason I sand is if I want to stain something. So the top of a buffet or a dresser that has a beautiful wood finish and it's not going to be a ton of work, then I will get the sander out and I will strip it first, which I'll talk about in a minute, and I'll sand it down to the bare wood. The other thing you need to know is that sometimes you discover as you start stripping that the wood isn't actually wood, it's a laminate, and when you start sanding, you sanded it right down to underneath the veneer, and then you've got a problem. You have to paint it. There's no fixing that. So the other thing I do, the other time I sand, is if it's an older piece and the varathane or varnish is starting to flake off, so it gets almost like a fish scale on it. you can see it sort of flaking. You want to get that off. You want your surface to be smooth. So I'll take a scraper and I just will scrape it down, and then I'll sand it with some sandpaper. So I'm just going to show you a little bit about sandpaper here. If you don't already know, you may, but I didn't. And my husband does a lot of woodwork, and I would have to keep asking him. So that lower the number on the sandpaper, the more coarse it is. So this is a P80, and again, I'm doing this on my phone, so it's backwards. I apologize. This is a 80 grit, and so it's coarse. It's coarse. I don't know any other way to say it. It's more coarse. As the numbers go down, this is a 120 grit, and it's less coarse. Okay, so it's going to give you a smoother finish. So I would always start with the more coarse to get that stuff off, and then go to a higher number, probably 150 to 200, to smooth it out. So you don't want it. You need the higher number to get it smoother. Okay, I'm just going back to my notes here. So I also sand a piece when it's press board and the press board has bubbled. So I'm going to do a whole piece on this, but it's kind of tricky because press board is super hard. And so I usually dig it out, fill it with wood filler, and then sand it down. But again, I'm going to do a whole nother video on that. I'm not going to get into that here.